Merci beaucoup. Après 500 milliards de dollars de dépenses inflationnistes de ce gouvernement, on voit aujourd'hui le plus grande augmentation d'inflation en 30 ans. À 4,8 le taux d'inflation impose de coûts additionnels sur les familles pour la nourriture, l'essence, le chauffage et surtout l'immobilier. Ce qui est intéressant parmi les chiffres aujourd'hui, c'est que les augmentations les plus exorbitantes ne sont pas pour les produits qu'on achète du monde. C'est pour des produits que nous avons ici au Canada. Par exemple, la nourriture, on voit une augmentation de 6 pour le poulet, de 12 pour le bœuf, de 20 pour le bacon. Nous produisons tous ces produits ici au Canada. Donc, nous ne devrions pas dépendre du reste du monde pour les chaînes d'approvisionnement. Le gaz naturel pour chauffer nos maisons, c'est produit ici au Canada. Nous avons ici au Canada 1300 milliards de pieds carrés de gaz naturel ici au Canada. Donc, nous ne dépendons pas sur le reste du monde pour fournir le gaz naturel. C'est produit ici au Canada et l'augmentation de 20 est incroyable. Finalement, l'augmentation de l'essence de 30 Encore, nous avons le troisième plus grand montant de pétrole au monde. Donc, c'est encore un produit domestique qui augmente. Finalement, l'immobilier. Évidemment, nos terrains sont ici. On ne les achète pas du reste du monde. Nos maisons ont été, la plupart de nos maisons sur le marché ont été construites avant le COVID. Donc, les chaînes d'approvisionnement internationaux ne sont pas responsables de cette augmentation non plus. Je remarque aussi que le taux d'inflation est incroyable de 4,8 ne calcule même pas l'augmentation des prix d'immobilier. C'est parce que la méthode de Statistique Canada n'inclut pas le prix d'immobilier dans le calcul. Donc, si on avait inclus l'augmentation de 26 dans le prix des maisons, le taux d'inflation aurait été même beaucoup plus grand. Et cet aspect de notre économie est énorme. Il ne faut pas oublier que dans l'année dernière, on a eu 450 milliards de dollars d'achat des maisons et d'immobilier. Et ça comprend à peu près 20 de notre économie en termes de PIB. Donc, on exclut toutes ces augmentations du calcul. Pour résumer, les politiques du gouvernement fédéral augmentent le coût de la vie. Et Justin Trudeau ne fait rien pour combattre l'inflation. Aujourd'hui, il doit annoncer un plan pour renverser l'augmentation dans le coût de vie que son gouvernement a causé auprès des Canadiens. Ce n'est pas assez de blâmer les autres pays. Il faut un plan ici au Canada pour combattre l'inflation parce que nos familles ne peuvent pas payer le prix. Et je remarque en conclusion que l'augmentation des salaires était de 2,6 la moitié de l'augmentation dans le coût de vie. Ça veut dire qu'après on fait les ajustements pour l'inflation, les Canadiens ont eu une réduction de paie dans les 12 derniers mois. Donc, les réductions de paie, les coûts plus élevés, une économie faible, c'est le temps d'agir. C'est juste l'inflation et les Canadiens en ont eu assez. Merci, monsieur. Merci tout le monde. Et maintenant en anglais. Thank you very much. And now in English. Today we got news of another record-breaking inflation report. 4.8%, the highest inflation since 1991. And that 4.8% does not even include real estate prices, which are excluded from the calculation of the Consumer Price Index. Increases of 26% in real estate, record-smashing and world-leading, are not even included in today's incredible inflation numbers. But what's also incredible is that prices are rising fastest for the things that we source right here at home. Chicken, up 6%. Beef, 12%. Bacon, 19%. Natural gas to heat our homes, 20%. Gasoline, 30%. These are all things that we provide here in Canada. We have more farmland per capita than almost any other nation on earth. Therefore, we domestically source our food. We have 1,300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, among the biggest reserves on earth. We source that here too. And in terms of gas prices, we have the third biggest reserves of oil on planet Earth. In other words, the biggest increases for consumer products have been those that we source right here at home, not those that depend on foreign supply chains. Finally, real estate, of all things, that is not dependent on global supply chains. All of our land is already here. It has no supply chain. And almost all of the houses in the market today were built before COVID even happened. And therefore, the cost of materials would not include the increases that have happened since COVID. In other words, home price inflation is a homegrown problem. Why is it, if, as the Prime Minister claims, that it's global supply chains that are to blame for rising prices, that the products that we make here at home and that we have in abundance within our own borders are the ones that are increasing fastest in price? So the answer, of course, is that Justin Trudeau's $500 billion of new spending in the last 2 years, a third of which had nothing to do with COVID, have sent more dollars chasing fewer goods. His taxes on our domestic supply chains have made it more expensive for farmers to produce food, for energy companies to supply gas and home heating, for workers to work. All of these governmental costs are driving up Canadians' costs. The more he spends, the more things cost. Today, I expect he'll try to blame the rest of the world for his inflation, and he'll offer no solutions. Well, Conservatives are demanding that he announce today an immediate action plan to reverse the rising cost of living that his government has worsened through its taxes, spending, and red tape. Conservatives have real suggestions. Stop energy tax hikes. Stop payroll tax hikes, remove red tape and taxes on our farmers and energy producers so that they can supply more energy and nutrition to our population at more affordable prices. In other words, make more, cost less with paychecks, not debt. Otherwise, the Prime Minister might as well just admit that this is Justinflation. Thank you.
We'll start with questions in the room. Commençons avec les questions de la salle.
Bonjour, M. Poilievre, Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada. Ce matin, le directeur parlementaire du budget dit que le gouvernement n'a pas réduit ses dépenses en relance économique comme il l'avait promis à mesure que l'économie reprenait du mieux. Oui. Est-ce que vous croyez effectivement que le gouvernement doit réduire ses dépenses de relance économique? Quelle approche ou comment ajuster l'approche du gouvernement au budget qui s'en vient, là?
Mais la réponse est oui. Les dépenses que le gouvernement fait ne fait rien pour la relance économique. Le directeur parlementaire du budget a révélé aujourd'hui que le gouvernement les mesures introduites par le gouvernement ont augmenté le coût du gouvernement par 500 milliards de dollars, donc un tiers n'a aucun lien avec la pandémie, et qu'il n'y a aucune logique dans les dépenses supplémentaires que le gouvernement prétend faire pour la relance. La relance économique au Canada va se produire si les Canadiens et les entreprises ont l'argent dans leur poche pour pouvoir investir et créer davantage de produits et services. Ça doit être mené par le secteur privé. Le gouvernement devient trop lourd et c'est pour ça que nous avons un grand déficit avec grande inflation.
Vous blâmez le gouvernement en bloc pour l'augmentation de l'inflation, du coût de la vie. C'est pas un peu facile de faire ça si on considère que plusieurs pays dans le monde, à commencer par nos voisins qui sont confrontés aux mêmes problèmes et même à un taux d'inflation qui est encore plus élevé que chez nous?
Oui, la raison pour ça est évidente. Les énormes déficits aux États-Unis, financés par leur banque centrale, augmentent le coût de la vie des Américains.
C'est un problème global.
Non, ce n'est pas. Parce que ce n'est pas un problème en Suisse. Pourquoi pas? Parce qu'en Suisse, ils n'impriment pas l'argent pour payer les factures du gouvernement. Ils ont un petit déficit, donc ils ont une petite inflation. C'est bizarre que dans la zone euro, on a une inflation d'à peu près 5 %. En Suisse, qui est dans l'Europe, on a un taux d'à peu près 1 %. Et pourquoi? Parce que la Suisse contrôle son argent. Ils ont le franc suisse au lieu de l'euro. Donc, oui, c'est vrai que les autres gouvernements sont des responsables aussi. Le gouvernement aux États-Unis, voici un fait. Aux États-Unis aujourd'hui, 1/3 de tous les dollars qui existent ont été créés dans les derniers 2 ans. On se demande pourquoi il y a de l'inflation aux États-Unis. C'est évident. Ils impriment l'argent pour payer leurs factures. L'autre chose qu'il faut reconnaître, c'est que le taux d'inflation ici au Canada est supprimé par le fait que la propriété n'est pas compris dans le calcul. Et ici au Canada, l'inflation se concentre sur l'immobilier. Aux autres pays, leurs inflations est concentrée dans d'autres secteurs. Mais ici au Canada, l'inflation le plus exorbitant, c'est dans l'immobilier, ce qui n'est pas compris dans le calcul. C'est une des raisons pour lesquelles notre taux est supprimé par rapport aux autres pays où aussi l'immobilier n'est pas compris, mais où l'immobilier n'est pas aussi grand comme facteur de leur augmentation de coûts.
Nous allons passer aux questions au téléphone. We'll take questions from the phone. Operator, first question.
Thank you. Our first question is from Wyatt Sharp from the Wyatt Sharp Show. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Hi there, Mr. Poilievre. I just want to ask you, first of all, about the vaccine mandate for truckers that came into effect. So obviously conservative support vaccination, as you and your leader have pointed out previously and numerous times. It seems, though, as if obviously you don't support forcing people to get vaccinated because you have concerns specifically for the mandate for truck drivers that it could put more pressure on the supply chain. So do you have any measures that, could help get truck drivers vaccinated that wouldn't be in the form of a mandate and that essentially wouldn't put as much pressure on the supply chain?
Thanks very much, Wyatt. Great question. We do not support the Prime Minister's vaccine vendetta on our truckers. This policy is going to drive truckers out of the country or out of business, and it is going to drive costs up for Canadian consumers. If you walk into a grocery store and you see products on the shelves, thank a trucker. If you walk into a grocery store and you see empty shelves, thank Justin Trudeau. His policy of vaccine vendetta against our hardworking truckers is going to drive up the costs for our people, drive people out of work, and leave us with empty shelves. We think the best way to get people vaccinated is through persuasion, not intimidation. We don't believe in robbing people's freedoms. We believe in convincing them through data, science, and logic. And we think that the Prime Minister's attempt to attack people who have different points of view on this is only dividing the country and threatening public health.
Okay, and then thank you for that. And then in terms of inflation, obviously it's rising in Canada. You mentioned it's the highest it's been in quite a while. It's obviously rising too in many other parts of the world. Some countries, the U.S., it's climbed 7%. And that's the largest rate in the United States since 1982. So I'm just wondering specifically, obviously Canada can take measures to address it here at home. What do you think should be done, though, to address it? Because obviously, Canada can address it here at home, and that's great. But if other countries don't address it, it could also have an impact on, the goods that we import and export. So how can we ensure that inflation rates, are lowered, not just in Canada, but around the globe? And what kind of role does the Canadian government play to make sure that they can be lowered, not just in Canada, but around the world?
Great question, Wyatt. Well, first of all, you're right. The Americans have 7% inflation. Why? Because of their stupid monetary and fiscal policy. It's that simple. They're running massive deficits and printing money to pay for it. The $1 in every $3 in circulation in the U.S. economy today was printed in the last 2 years. More dollars chasing fewer goods means higher prices. So what do you get with that? You get inflation. What we should do is avoid following that policy. We should do the opposite of what the Americans are doing. That's what Switzerland has done in Europe. While the Eurozone has inflation around 5%, Switzerland has been closer to 1%. Why? Because the Swiss have their own franc. They don't print it to pay the government's bills, and therefore they protect the purchasing power of their people, even though they rely on the same supply chains in the same continent and face the same pandemic as their European neighbors. So here in Canada, if we were to protect our purchasing power by phasing out the deficit, ending money printing, then we could protect our people against the kind of inflation that we see south of the border. We don't need to follow the Americans' monetary policy. During the 2008-9 financial crisis, the Americans printed money. We did not. We had better results: lower inflation, lower deficit, lower unemployment, faster recovery. So we don't need to do what the Americans are doing. We need to protect our own money here in Canada. When we were growing up, our kids, as we were kids, and our mother said to us, just because your friends are jumping off a bridge doesn't mean you have to. And the same applies today. Just because other governments are ruining their money and driving up the cost of living for their people doesn't mean that we have to do the same here in Canada. And finally, I would point out that we in Canada are underestimating the real inflation because it doesn't include house prices, which have gone up a record-breaking 26%. While that is why a practice of many countries, outside of Canada, inflation has not centered on house prices as much as it has here. Here, inflation has been focused primarily on real estate, and that is not included in the 4.8%, one of the reasons why we have an artificially suppressed number.
Opérateur, prochaine question.
Thank you. Our next question is from David Thurton from CBC News. Please go ahead. À vous la parole.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Poilievre. It's good to see you. My question is this: should federal politicians or their wives accept gifts, like just say a rocking chair in the range of $2,000 with tax, and also, tag the retailer on social media? Do you think that's acceptable?
I don't think it's a good practice. I make a point whenever I'm supporting a product that is Canadian made in order to celebrate a local business or something, that I always pay for it. If I'm having a cup of coffee at a coffee shop and I post about the coffee, I always make sure I pay for it, even if the owner tries innocently to offer it for free, because we should not use our social media networks while in elected office for private profit. So that is the approach that I have taken in my social media, and I would encourage others to follow that.
So, with the case that I'm alluding to, of course, involves the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh. It's a bit more complicated than just him personally. His wife received the rocking chair with the expectation that she would post it on social media. He happened to be sitting in the chair and posting a picture of himself and tagging the company. What do you think? How do you think the rules should apply when it comes to the wives of politicians, or the husbands of politicians, the spouses of politicians? It's a bit of a gray area perhaps there. So I'm just wondering if you can weigh in there for yourself.
I would like to defer to the ethics commissioner on that. I think Mr. Singh realized that it was a mistake for him to post a picture of himself in the chair, and he has made the proper decision to pay for the chair as a result. I think that was wise. I would leave it to the ethics commissioner to determine what the rules should be for spouses.
Béatrice, prochaine question.
Thank you. We have no further questions registered at this time. Back to you. Nous n'avons plus de questions pour le moment. Je vous retourne la parole.
Thank you very much, Monsieur et tout le monde, and I hope you are all enjoying the beautiful Ottawa weather today.